Hamilton police, blah, 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 right? So this call was about somebody actually dying in the unit of one of my clients' properties.
I fired a client over that once where superb job for them. They made a ton of money. The husband kind of talked down to me. He's like, well, you're our realtor. You work for us. So welcome to the second episode of The Real Side of Real Estate. I'm super excited to have my guest here with me, Arro Hossain. He's part of the McCarroll group with Real Broker. How are you, Arro?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me here.
It's been a while, eh?
It's been a while.
Arro is a fellow realtor in the Hamilton market, and he deals with the same niche that I deal with, which is investment real estate. So I'd love to have him on here to, pick his brain about what's going on in the market right now, pick his brain about some what he thinks is going to happen, and also talk about some stories we may have, some pro stories, some con stories, some ups, some downs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's just have a good conversation about that stuff.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, for sure. So Arro,
Yes, sir.
I know you, but I want everyone else to get to know you. How long have you been a realtor for?
So I got my courses finished back in 2016.
Okay.
And then I got my license later that year. And then I didn't really start full time until 2017. So it's been about 6+ years.
Okay.
Time flew by. Like, it doesn't feel like it, but it's definitely been a while.
It's aging, huh?
Yeah. I got some grays, as you can see.
So what do you find is the difference now in the market compared to when you started? Because I remember 2016, 17 was a little bit different of a market compared to now in 2023.
Well, I think, there's a lot of differences in my opinion. I was new to Hamilton at that time. We just moved to Hamilton. So if you're talking just in Hamilton, I think there's been lots of changes, mainly to do with population growth. There's a lot more people living here compared to when I moved here.
For sure.
So that probably has an impact on affordability and the inventory of houses that are available, right? There's obviously so much more demand in the housing sector. I'm just talking about in Hamilton in general.
For sure.
And then also from the realtor side, a lot more agents, right? A lot more agents that want to do investments. Back in those times, I don't think there was too many agents that were doing.
There wasn't too many, no, but not back in 2016, 17.
Right. So now I see that there's a lot more realtors that are doing investment properties and things like that. And I mean, obviously prices, right? Like
they've jumped up. They've jumped up a lot. 2016, 17 is actually the start of it. Was the start of like the hype, right?
Correct.
I think it started in the end of 2015, where it started to ramp up, and then 2016, it kind of took off, and we were just like, we couldn't believe it because I'm a Hamiltonian. I've been here all my life, and I couldn't believe the prices back then.
Yeah.
And then Toronto did an article back then. It was we were on the front page. I don't know if you remember that. On Toronto Life, Hamilton, the new Toronto hotspot.
Yeah, there was a couple of articles I read, and that's why I moved to Hamilton at that time. There was a couple of articles, and there was actually a report that was put out by, I forget the name of the company that puts it out, but it was just basically talking about the top investment cities in Ontario. Hamilton at that time was number 1. I think Kitchener might have been number 2 or 3. But yeah, at that time, when you talk to like Hamiltonians that are from here, that lived here, when I bought my house downtown for like $290, they were like, "Oh, you bought in the wrong part of neighborhood. You know, that house is not worth $290." I wish I kept it. I ended up selling it over the years. But recently on that street, there's houses for sale at like $900.
So if you don't mind me asking, where was that? What street was that on?
That was on Gibson.
Gibson. Wow.
Yeah.
In 2016.
Correct.
So even me in 2016, if you told me you bought on Gibson, I would have been like, it's changing, it's gentrifying, and it's gentrified completely almost now.
Yeah.
But
I will say so Gibson obviously goes from King all the way up to Barton,
Yeah.
right? The section of Gibson that I was in, which was from King to I believe Wilson.
Oh, that's not that bad.
That one's not that bad, right?
no,
The small
no.
little section, it
The
feels
north
nice.
side was a little bit
Correct.
more,
Yeah.
you know,
A little bit more rougher.
Yeah.
Closer to Barton Street.
closer to Barton.
But even then, I think 290. I think that was a pretty good for me at least.
Yeah, 290 is
Looking back on it,
it's amazing. Just compared to nowadays, right?
right?
So moving into the Hamilton market, you didn't really know many people
Right.
here in Hamilton, so you had to start all over, fresh.
Yeah, I mean, I just I wasn't a realtor before, right? So I was just brand new.
Yeah.
You know, I came to Hamilton. You know, I was able to make some good connections prior to me moving here.
Awesome.
And just kind of started with that team and to really kickstart my real estate career. And it was mainly because I wanted to do investments, right? Like I wanted to
Investments.
purchase properties for myself.
So you wanted to be an investor.
Correct. And then at the same time, I was getting my license because that's when, I don't know if you remember, they were switching the rules from having to do 3 exams to making it, you have to do the 5 exams.
For the college course.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, I remember where they were transitioning people from the 3
To 5.
and then to the you had to do the 3 and then you had to do the other 3 in the
Right.
2 years.
Right.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, I better get my license now because if I have to do 5, I'm never going to get my license, right? So I said, okay, I did the 3 courses. It was pretty easy. Got my license and then, yeah.
And you started with a team, you said, right? So
Correct.
what was that team that you started with?
So I started with MRN, MRN is the McKay Realty Network.
Yeah.
Sandy McKay, Sandy and
Awesome.
Kate, they were the ones that kind of like took me in
And
you
they
know,
were with which company?
Keller Williams.
Keller Williams, yeah.
I was with the team in Keller Williams, yeah.
That's awesome. Like that was when the Keller Williams was on King Street, correct?
Yep. I joined I think it's King and I don't even remember. It's like further east. It was a small little house, house. Very small. Like it's a bungalow.
I think it's Chris Metcalf's office now, right?
You're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
Yeah. No, I know where that is. This is close to Rosedale area, I believe.
Yeah, just before Rosedale.
Yeah.
I forget the intersection. I think there's like Tuxedo and there's like a bunch of streets like that.
Yeah.
It's right in that little pocket.
So now you're a veteran in the game.
I mean, I got some experience.
You got your stripes, man. You're in 5-6 years. You got your stripes.
Yeah.
You've tested the waters.
Yep.
You also invest in some properties, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what you've invested in, what kind of properties you're looking to invest in.
Yeah, so when we first started out, we were looking at, some duplex opportunities. We weren't really looking on the mountain at all, to be honest with you. Like it was everything that was downtown. The mountain, for me, I came up here. I used to live here before that, actually, when I was going to McMaster. So I knew the areas pretty well, but I was really into the downtown properties where you can split it up into like triplex and a fourplex.
Yeah, the bigger properties.
Yeah. But at that time, I couldn't really get the financing, right?
I
So
see.
my purchase power was limited.
Mhm.
So we were looking at, we actually ended up buying our neighbor's house right next door.
Wow.
Old, Hamiltonian lady. She
So
was
on Gibson.
on Gibson. So I ended
Oh,
up buying
awesome.
2 on Gibson.
Oh, great.
And then we were doing the renos on the property. And at the same time, some other opportunities came around that were multifamily. So we dabbled into that. So we ended up selling both of those houses on Gibson.
That was during you being a realtor, or
Yeah.
before you being a realtor?
Yeah. No, this was like a year into being a realtor.
Oh, so that's awesome. So you were already investing. You were kind of like, you already had your feet wet in the investing game.
A little bit, right? Like I worked
Yeah.
with a lot of investors. So it gave me a little bit of confidence to be able to go do something myself.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just picking their brains,
For sure.
working with the contractors that they were working
Of
with
course,
at that
yeah.
time. So I was like, this is something I want to do. I think I could do it.
Yeah.
And then we when we got the house next door, I started doing the demo with a buddy of mine. But it was not something I could handle, right? So we did a little bit and then that's it. But long story short, we transitioned from, single family homes into multifamily, residential properties, and then we ended up selling those 2, and then I ended up that's when I moved to Burlington.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Like, you mentioned something that brings me back to like a story of mine. I had a couple properties here in Hamilton myself, and I always thought to myself, well, I can't get another one because I'm you're over leveraged. You think you can't, and I had clients that were doing it. I was helping them. I was their realtor, and they showed me methods of, creative ways of getting financing that I didn't even think that was possible.
Yeah.
So it's funny being realtors. Like we learn a lot from our clients.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and some of these clients are more educated in the investing game than we are.
Yep.
We always think that, okay, we got to be the best realtor, just got to be the best realtor, number one, this and that, but we're never really thinking, okay, maybe we could do the same thing they're doing, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe we can learn from their strategies and do something like a burr. Like I didn't know what a burr was before.
Yeah.
Did you ever, like when I heard that, I was like, is that
Yeah,
getting cold outside? What is that, a burr? Like it's...
Yeah, it's cold. So the burr, I actually heard of the burr before I got my realtor license, real estate license. So I was listening to a podcast, right?
Oh,
like
awesome.
Nowadays podcasts are the thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But this was around 2012, so 11 years ago. There was like nobody really making podcasts. There was like a one or two here.
Yeah, it was
and
very
there.
limited back then.
Very limited.
Yeah.
So I found a podcast that they were talking about real estate investments and things like that. And it was actually the team that I joined his podcast. Sandy's
team.
He had a podcast. So I was listening to it. I was taking in all the information that I could. And I came across an episode, and it was an investor that was doing the burr, right?
Oh,
and I said,
nice.
well, what's this? What's burr? And I remember this vividly because it was during a snowstorm. So like I was outside shoveling my driveway.
Yeah.
And I had my headphones plugged in and I was just listening to the episode, and the concept of the burr, I was like, this can't be real, right? Like this seems illegal almost.
Yeah.
Where you're buying something and you're, increasing the value within 6 months, and you get to like refinance and pull out all the money, and you get to keep it and you don't have to pay taxes. I was like, this is real? Like, this is a scam, right? So then I looked more into it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is it. Like, that's what I got to do. That's the only real way I thought, it was possible to scale at a quicker pace, right?
For sure.
Because you can buy a house, hold it for 10 years. So obviously the value is going to go up. You can refinance, get money out, go buy another house. A lot of people do that, right?
Sure.
So that's in a way a burr minus the rentals.
For sure. 100%.
Right? So you're waiting for natural appreciation. This was like all compact into like 6 months.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, let me find out more, right? Like this seems really good.
Yeah.
And funny story, I'll back up a little bit more. Do you remember WorldStar?
Yeah.
You remember WorldStar, right?
It was a site, right?
It was a website.
The funny stuff or
the
controversial stuff.
Yeah. So I found before me being a realtor or even thinking about real estate, I came across this video, and they were talking about wholesaling.
Wholesaling, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I was like, what the fuck is wholesaling, right? So then I looked into it, and I was like, this is nothing. And then I just kept on browsing, looking at other videos on WorldStar, right?
You know what's funny? Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? I looked into wholesaling also, and it was an American thing.
Yeah.
And I got a bunch of booklets. I ordered it online.
Me too.
And I got a bunch of booklets, and it was like, okay, I'm ready to wholesale. And then this is what you do in Florida. This is what you do in Texas. And I'm like,
yeah.
Can you even do this in Canada?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So that's exactly what happened to me. So I saw that video. I pushed it aside, and then later I'm like, you know what? Let me look at the video. So I searched it up, and then I found it, and then I looked it up, and it's like, wow, like you can assign a contract without ever owning the home. This is great. Like this is what I was looking for, right? But then I signed up for a course. They sent me a booklet. It had like CDs and like workbooks where you can write down.
Yeah.
And you have to do like bandit signs and things like that. I see a lot of those here.
There's a lot now. Back in those days, it was limited.
Yeah.
But now there's a lot more.
Sure. This is like 2013, right? 2014.
Back then it was a little bit limited. Yeah.
So that's how I got into thinking about real estate.
I see.
And then I found a podcast that was local to Hamilton in Canada. And then I just got my license, and then from there naturally just started working with investors. And going back to what you said about learning from our clients, I realized a lot of the clients that I was working with were like accountants, lawyers, doctors, people that have really high paying jobs. And I was obviously learning a lot from them. And at the same time, it made me realize, because they put a lot of value and, took what I was saying into account, right? Like it put things in perspective where it's like, I don't really come from a really well-educated background, right? Like I never finished, university. I went to McMaster for a year. That's it. But talking to those individuals and seeing that they put their trust and valued my opinions
Yeah.
made me realize, or gave me that confidence to be able to go ahead and do it myself, right?
That's an amazing feeling. That like I realized that myself with at first it was a struggle. Like it's a struggle when you start any business. You don't, even if you grew up here, your friends and family don't really give you a stab at it or a
No.
chance when you're starting out.
Maybe here and there.
Maybe here and there, but not really to make a career out of it
Right.
when you start.
Most of them think that you're gonna fail.
Most of them just give you the runaround,
Yeah.
right? But once you start kind of making it and then you kind of prove yourself, then they're on board.
Correct.
But at first, it's truly it is a struggle, right? And you're doing everything you can to succeed and be the best realtor you could possibly be. And in my opinion, to be the best, you just have to focus on it and just got to go and do what it takes every day and discipline and structure. And that's what I was doing. And for the longest time myself, I had investor clients and I was making them so much money, they were flipping properties, they were doing birds, they were doing all these things. And just like you said, right? Some of them were accountants, some of them were lawyers, some of them were full-time investors. I was picking their brains. I was asking questions like, I was asking the accountant questions about accounting. I was asking the lawyer questions. I was asking the investor questions. And that's how I got started. That's what sparked my interest in investing. When I was asking the investor, how do they do this?
Right.
What are you doing to be able to get the financing? What are you doing to be able to scale to a higher level? So once they opened up and they shared their secrets, I kind of said, okay, maybe I'll try it. And the confidence of doing what we do every day on a day-to-day and knowing the market kind of makes you want to take the plunge, right? Like just jump in and, it's kind of like a sink or swim situation.
Right.
But if you do your studying and you have an understanding of the market and you know what things are trending, then it's a little bit less of a risk, because we are realtors.
Yeah.
And so we know the market a little bit, so we can kind of see where things are trending.
Right.
And, and if we've done it before for our clients and we've done it before for people that we know, friends and family, we gain the confidence.
Yeah.
And just like you said, after you do one or two investments, you have even more confidence.
Yeah, it's almost like an itch that you get where it's like, if you have some money sitting inside, you're like, oh, I gotta buy something. Like you almost have to spend
and
it.
you know what? You learn that from your clients too, right? Your clients are like, most of my investor clients are like, money, inflation, you're gonna lose value.
Yeah.
You gotta really invest.
Yep.
The wealthy invest. And the books that I read, Stefano Armia, I think it was his name.
Stefan Arnio?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I read his book.
Nice.
And his book was about flipping. He was flipping in Winnipeg. That was one of the first flipping books I read.
Yep.
And I was just like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I want to flip properties.
Yep.
Like, how he took something that was old and needed to be brought up to today's standards, and he made it beautiful and sold it to a family. Like, that intrigued me.
Yeah, and especially in Hamilton, right? Like we have a huge amount of houses that need it.
For
right?
sure.
They're like 100+ years old. They haven't been like really well maintained over the years. So like in a way, the way I look at it, a lot of people have like a negative idea towards investors, right? And flippers. But the way I look at it is you're improving the neighborhoods.
100%.
You're providing homes that are livable
100%.
to families.
And you know what? You're gentrifying. We are single-handedly gentrifying the city.
100%.
And all the investors that we bring in are gentrifying our city.
Yeah.
Which in turn brings up the value of the properties we own in the city.
Correct.
Which clean the city up and bring the values up for everyone.
Yeah.
So
I know there's a lot of talk about it, like it's too expensive and people can't afford it. I mean, I get that. I understand it. But at the same time, look back like 15 years ago, if you're somebody living in that neighborhood, do you like it better now versus 15 years ago?
100%.
Right?
You
Where there was like, violence, drugs, some of the stories, some of the properties I've been through, man.
Oh
Holy.
my God.
Like,
I could just imagine some of the stories. We're going to talk about these stories. I want to hear. I want to hear the gruesome stories. I want to tell you one quick story of one of the properties I did.
yeah.
Because it's an interesting story. It was a house that was on Emerald Street.
Okay. Yeah.
And
North or south?
north.
Okay.
And everybody was against this house.
Okay.
I brought my investors there. I'm like, guys, this is the house. 200,000, 240,000. Buy this house. Let's flip this house. Because I was always thinking clients first, clients first. My clients were like, we can't see it. We can't see it. It was rough around the edges. It was a drug addict's home. It was, you could see that it needed a lot of work. But I knew the area was gentrifying. The neighbor to the left was from Toronto. The neighbor to the right was from Vancouver. So, but the stigma of people in Hamilton, Emerald Street, has a bad stigma, just like Barton Street has a bad stigma. So when I brought it to all my investors, they didn't want to take it on. And they're like, no, man, we're good. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I remember people saying, you're crazy. Why are you going to do this? I remember I went, and at the time, I went to my boss and I was like, okay, can I get a loan? A private mortgage? She's like, what do you need? I'm like, I need 240,000. It's like 240,000 was the whole price of the house. It's like, you're not going to put any money down? I'm like, I'll make you a partner.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So I thought of it like structuring it. I'll make you a partner. So where are you going to get the money for the renovations? I'm like, don't worry about that. Are you in or are you out? And he's like, yeah, okay. I believe in you. Let's do it. So he was in, and I went and I raised another 100,000 for the renovation from one of my clients, that said to me, hey, if you ever need any money, I do private lending to you.
Nice.
So I took on that project. I bought it for 240,000, 2016 or 17 or something around that time, and we turned it around in 4 months, and we sold it for 480 something.
Nice.
And it was the highest at that time,
At
right?
that time, yeah.
And I remember other agents, they called me. They're like, hey, great job on that Emerald house. Like, you're changing the city. Just to prove like what we were talking about, right? We are single-handedly, ourselves and our clients are flipping and gentrifying these areas that had bad stigmas. Like Emerald had a bad stigma. I've been here all my life. Emerald was like, you don't want to even
go
walk
there.
your dog there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's drug addicts. There's there's prostitution. All that stuff was there, right? Barton Street, Barton Street's changing now. You could see all that, right? So if it wasn't for these investors coming in the city, changing the city, and if it wasn't for them giving the confidence to the locals, I feel the outsiders give us the confidence. The people that come from Toronto, the people come from Pickering, Ajax, all those places, because they see the value in these old Victorian homes.
Right.
They see the value in triplexes and duplexes and fourplexes and all these bigger properties, because they know what happened in Toronto in the 80s when the condos went up, right?
Correct.
And how the prices skyrocketed after the condos went up, right? I don't know if it's going to get to that extent in Hamilton, but there is a lot of condos going up in the city in downtown.
Yeah.
And I believe once they're all finished, the prices of those properties in those areas, they've already jumped up a lot, probably 21 to 22% year after year. It may be down a little bit this year because of 2023 and the interest rates are high. But I feel like when those condos are fully developed and fully occupied, those detached houses or semi-detached or any of those homes around there, they're going to skyrocket. I don't know if you agree with me with that.
I do. I think, I don't think it will ever catch up to Toronto prices. I think it'll always be a few steps behind.
For sure.
But I think Hamilton, I think the ceiling is really high, right? Like, I don't think we're anywhere close to the ceiling.
No.
It might feel like that right now where we're capped off. And I felt like that back in 2017, 2018 when the market was pretty flat. And then obviously since then things went, skyrocketing through the roof. I think in terms of future growth, the city has lots of potential.
100%.
I see a lot of, again, like there's so many properties that need work, right?
100%.
I would guess we're probably not even 50% in
No,
terms of,
I don't think so. There's so many there's so many dated homes,
yeah,
and there's a lot of baby boomers still holding on to those homes,
correct.
and nothing against the older generation, but most of them didn't really want to renovate their homes. It wasn't a big thing back then, right? Like,
Well, yeah, like you're catering to younger, millennials
yeah,
and
younger demographics.
demographic, right? So you have to do some
Of
updating.
course.
Like I go to some of these properties and it's like I feel like I'm back in the 80s, right? You're like
The tiles, the old Italian
as soon as you
tiles,
enter, right? You got the
shag
stove.
carpets.
You got a stove from 1960s,
The shag carpets.
the the carpets in the washroom, right? The pink, the blue, the
Oh,
green.
I love the pink toilets. Those are my favorite. Pink and green toilets. Those are
Right. So those were a thing back in the days.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously, no millennial is going to go in there and be like, yeah, this is where I want to live.
This is move-in ready.
Right. So I think, like you said, it's nothing against the baby boomers.
The
but
times change, right? The times change.
Right.
And the way I look at it, they may change again in the next
100%.
generation. And you know what? Trends change, cycles change. Lots of things come back in from what was in the 80s, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And like things, it's just like it's a trend, right? So trends
Right.
go up and down and all the way around, the way I look at it.
And you know how I know it's going to change? Remember, maybe this was like 5-6 years ago, the gray vinyl.
Grays were in, yeah.
The grays were in.
Everybody's doing grays.
Everybody's doing. Now everybody hates them.
I did so many gray. Everything was gray.
Yeah.
I know the audience really wants to hear about some of our challenging stories that we've had dealing with, let's talk about dealing with some challenging experiences with some clients. People don't really understand it as being a realtor. You're really catering to your client, right?
Yeah.
You're on call. You sacrifice a lot of time from your family,
Yeah.
friends. You're pretty much trying to do everything you can to make your client happy. And sometimes that seems like an impossible task.
And sometimes you feel like you made them happy, but then only to find out that you didn't. But no, I think, it's understandable because it's a big transaction.
It's a big investment,
right?
It's a huge investment.
It's the
correct.
biggest transaction for most people.
100%.
So being a realtor, for me, it's more than that. It's about being some sort of a consultant, right?
100%.
You're consulting.
A marriage counselor.
Yeah, there's times where the husband and wife are probably not on the same page.
Yeah.
Those are interesting, but you get to find out like who's calling the shots, right?
I'll tell you, Arro. I've been a marriage counselor. I've done some parenting. You know what I mean. You're not just a realtor. That's not the only thing you're
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
People have a misconception. Okay, we just sell homes and drive fancy cars and wear fancy clothes and have expensive lunches and dinners and they see the the glitz and the glamour.
Right.
But they don't really see that there's a water leak
Yeah.
and we're in there trying to figure out
Yeah.
which plumber we're gonna call and
Absolutely.
you know what I mean.
So yeah, like we're not just realtors because
No.
there's been situations where I had to go in. I don't even know what you'd call it, but like some sort of a mediator,
Like
right?
an advisor, right?
Consultant, advisor, whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. But I had a call I had actually a bunch of calls from the police. It's usually a private number, right?
Yeah.
So I answer it and it's like, Hamilton Police, blah, 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 right? So this call was about somebody actually dying in the unit of one of my clients' properties. So
Wow,
I showed up because I lived nearby.
Yeah.
And then I came there and just to find out that the tenant that was living in the basement unit, she overdosed on fentanyl.
Wow.
So, they don't teach you that at Oria, right? They don't teach you how to deal
They
with
don't
stuff
know.
like that. So
No, definitely
you're
not.
not just a realtor. In my opinion.
There's so many hats you wear, right?
And depending on who you're dealing with, you got to put on
100%.
different types of hats.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about managing some expectations as well.
For sure,
because there's
for
a lot
sure.
of people out there that think you like you're almost like a slave to them, where it's like you do exactly what I say, and it's like it's not really like that.
It's sad that they think that I fired a client over that once, where I did a superb job for them. They made a ton of money on a flip, and they the husband kind of talked down to me. He's like, "Well, you're our realtor. You work for us," and it really hurt. It kind of broke my heart. You know what I mean? Because I taught them a lot through the process, and I'm I like to teach people what I've learned. Like that's the beauty of knowledge, to share it, right?
100%.
And when I was talked down to, it really made me feel like, do I want that from a client? Like, I should be, and boundaries were set, but sometimes people don't, appreciate those boundaries, and they don't respect those boundaries. And saying that kind of thing to me really broke my heart, because it's like, I did everything I could for you, and I did a superb job, and we made a newspaper, you know what I mean? Like, we did great, on your first ever flip, like, so it made me realize that, you know what, like, sometimes we as human beings kind of become ungrateful,
Yeah.
and unappreciative of the people that help us get where we are. And you sometimes need to take a step back and understand that, hey, I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the help.
Right.
I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the advice, and I
Right.
wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for someone connecting me with all these beautiful people that they've been connected to through the years, right?
Right.
So how many clients of yours have you connected with trades, or have you connected with lawyers, or
Yep.
or great contacts that still use them on a daily basis, right?
Yeah. 100%.
So, I have a saying: never bite the hand that feeds you, and never bite the hand that helps you,
Right.
right? Because you don't want to burn bridges. You got to be friendly with everybody. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? We have good days, bad days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's better to work together, grow together. You know what I
Right.
mean? That in my perspective is the way that we should be doing it. Like you're a realtor yourself. I'm a realtor myself. There's enough clients out there for both of us. We
Yeah.
can work together
Yeah.
and accomplish the goals that we both set out for each other, right? So
Yeah, it's something when I came into the industry, it kind of stuck out to me. It's like you either have two different types of people, right? Like people that have an abundance mentality,
Yeah.
where like you said, there's enough business for everybody to go around, and then there are some people that have a scarcity mentality, right? And where it's like everything is, I gotta hold close,
Oh, yeah.
hold
Oh,
it
yeah.
close to my heart,
Yeah.
because there's not enough for everybody, right? So
it's funny when you say that. Like, I got in it 12 years ago, and when I got in it, it was very cutthroat.
right,
I started at an office with full of superstars, no doubt, full of superstars, like top name guys in that time, right? And I'm talking about, like, internet was like big, but not even
Right.
as close as big as it is now. It wasn't about social media. None of that stuff was
No.
around. And I remember some of the agents, they'd still carry their files around. Like, they had a huge thing of files that they carry around. And trying to get help back then from a realtor, oh, forget about it. Like, it was, yeah, we'll help you. But it was like they were afraid of the young kids coming in the business and taking their business. Now it's a lot better.
Right.
Now I gotta say that the teams are out there helping. Back then there wasn't as many teams. There was mostly like individuals that were really doing well, and they had a couple people. I think the only team there back then was like Al Constantino's team. He had a little cartoony guy on his signs. I don't know if you remember Al Constantino, but he was really big when I got in.
right.
Um,
He does pretty active.
Still does
Yeah.
really good. But
He's
like,
a good guy to talk to.
he's a really good guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy. He's got a lot of experience.
Yeah.
But back then
It's
it was
funny
like,
you mentioned that. I remember looking at histories on properties.
Yeah.
And like you'll go back to like 1987, and it's like Al Cosentino, and I'm like, oh shit, like
yeah,
it's
like
Al.
he's like and some of those guys like I started with, they were doing it for like 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
But I think with the new wave of people that came in, a new ideology came in with it.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's work together,
Yeah.
instead of the scarcity, the abundance. Teams started to form.
And I
Brokerages.
gotta give credit to Keller Williams, in my opinion, for that. Like when
Yeah.
I started, not many brokerages were like that, where
Yeah.
they were about being abundance mentality. I found KW was the only one that kind of was doing that
Yeah.
and having that approach towards
100%.
newer agents. So I really think that helped kind of shape the
Oh,
mentality.
100%. 100. You know what? Like, if I went back in time, um, I would have went to a mentor. 12 years ago, I wish I went to someone that say, okay, I'll do all your grunt work. You know, be my mentor.
Right.
But back then, we like, you know, I love the profession, but when you come out of OREA, you're kind of like a lost kid.
For
You know what I
sure.
mean? You don't really know where to go, what to do.
Yeah.
You don't even know how to log into the system. You know, like you don't know how to log into me. Like, you know, they don't teach you any of this.
No.
The forms, you learn it on like a high level. You don't really learn everything, right? So it's kind of like you're thrown to the wolves if you're on your own.
Yeah.
And it's like sink or swim
Right.
mentality, right? And a lot of people sunk, right?
Yeah,
And
and that kind of makes sense because if you look at the stats, right? I think I don't know the exact number, but a large portion of the realtors that are licensed, they're not necessarily active, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably because they don't necessarily know what to do, right? They don't know where to start.
they don't know where to start,
right?
and they don't have the help and guidance,
Yeah.
and like you said, Keller Williams is a great place to start. I wasn't fortunate enough to start in a place like that, but my second brokerage, I went to Your Choice Realty. I remember the broker of record there was extremely helpful, and she was always on call, and she helped a lot, and it made me kind of more confident. When you learn more, you get more confident
Yeah.
in the business. So it helped me learn more, and you know, I'm very grateful and appreciative for that. But if I had it back, and if I was a new person in the industry, I would definitely start with a team now.
Yeah.
I would definitely start with, like, you know, how you started Keller Williams on a team. I would suggest that all day, because the values you learn on a team, you won't learn on your own.
Yeah, it really cuts your learning curve down quite a bit, right? Not, because now instead of trying to figure out on your own what to do next, you're learning from
Other people's
other
experiences.
people's experience that are doing it at a higher level.
So
right?
you'll learn twice as fast.
Correct.
So, like for me, for example, I went the other route, and you know, I learned a lot in my fifth and sixth year.
Right.
Where if I went to a team, that could have been in 2 to 3 years.
Correct. Yeah.
And they would give me the structure. Unfortunately, at that time, there wasn't much of that, you know. So, but everybody learns in their own way. So I'm grateful that I learned in this way, and I could say to the new agents coming up, definitely go to a team. Go to a team,
Especially right now, right?
Yeah, it's becoming like a gang mentality kind of thing, right? Like, so you know what? I want to tell you about one of my interesting, funny stories. Arro, you brought up yours about the fentanyl guy and the unfortunate situation. He passed away, and you know, us as realtors have to wear different caps and different hats, and sometimes we have to do the stuff that's not on the menu, right? The special stuff.
Yeah.
So
You don't put that in your listing package.
No, the listing package. Yeah, I went to check on a house once, and we had this house getting ready to be listed. It was on Cheever Street. You know where Cheever and Barton. It was past Barton a little bit, and we were actually gonna do some work to the attic. You know, they had a leak. We just got the roof fixed. We were gonna do some work because we ripped down the drywall and there was a leak, so we had to fix it, right? So I was going with the contractor to assess the damages. They already fixed the roof, but I was gonna assess the inside, and you know, after the demo was done, and get some work done. So we went to the house, and I opened the door, and I could smell food. It's a vacant house. This is a vacant house. The owner's in Australia.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, what's going on here? My friend's like, my contractor friend is like, is somebody living here? And I'm like, no, nobody's here. It's a vacant house, right? So we went to the kitchen. We opened the stove, and it was a burnt hamburger, and the stove was on. And we're like looking at each other like, I don't know. And then we went to the back door. The back door was walking into the kitchen. So we open it and it's open. So we're like, what's going on? So we look in the backyard. There's like you know how they have those bikes and they have the little carriage for the kids.
Yeah.
So there's a bike and a carriage there, and we're like, and there looked like a bunch of stuff, and we're like, oh my god, did someone break in? So we went upstairs, and two of the bedrooms were empty. One of the bedrooms, they had a sleeping bag, had a little tray of food, pack of cigarettes. They put like a sheet up so the light couldn't come in, so they were sleeping in there.
Mm-hmm.
They went out early in the morning to probably, I don't know, to do what. They cooked the burger. The burger was burnt. And like, oh my god, like,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff nobody prepares you for.
No.
So I had to call the police. Police came. We did the report, all of that stuff. And we're like, okay, so, we locked it up and we left, right? We're not expecting anything else to happen at this house. So I got the guys to go back, to start the drywalling, and, everything was starting in that regard. We got a bunch of material to start the drywall.
Mm-hmm.
So they got the material, they put it all there, and we were about to start because they were just finishing up another job. We went back to the house, and all the material was gone.
Oh no.
We had insulation.
Oh no.
Everything was gone, besides a couple sheets of drywall. And when we opened the door, we heard people upstairs.
Oh man. Yeah.
We had people living at the property.
Yep.
And we called the police. The police came. They took them out. And they're like, what do you want to do? You want to charge them? You don't want to charge them? We're like, we definitely got to charge them. But the police officer said, well, they'll be out tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm like, then what's the point of charging them? It just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. He's like, well, this happens a lot in these houses. You should get a camera. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and we called insurance, and unfortunately insurance couldn't do much for the owner, and we decided to sell it as is, that property. But
Well.
think about it, like, people were living, the
Yeah.
audacity of someone, a whole family almost, like 4 people were living
Yeah.
in the property.
They're very strategic when it comes to stuff like this. No, I'm serious. Like, there's been multiple times where we had people breaking, especially on the properties that are being renovated.
Yeah.
Because they know, like, they have a way of figuring it
they
out.
scout it out, and
They do.
and they look, and you know what? I feel like there's certain areas, there's certain pockets that's like that.
For sure.
It's not really anything south of Maine. I don't see that much.
Not as much.
No,
But I've
it's-
had situations south of Maine.
Really?
It really depends on, like, what condition the property's
That's
in.
true. That's
and
true.
the neighbors that are surrounding it.
That's
right?
true. That's
If you
true.
have like, decent neighbors, they're not gonna bother.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
Good neighbors
Yeah.
go a long way, because a good neighbor, if they have your phone number, they're calling you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Or they'll call the cops.
Or they'll call the cops, right?
Because they know what's going on, and they're not. Nobody's supposed to be there, right? So
Yeah.
I've had some situations like that where the wiring was all stripped.
Oh, that happened to me also.
Yeah, that's expensive, man. That's a.
It actually happened to me on a flip property
Oh.
that we did on Dunsmuir that we actually sold to one of your agents.
Oh shit! I remember that one.
So
Yeah,
we had it staged.
but see, that's a good location, and you
That's
still
a decent location
Yeah.
on Dunsmuir, and
you still had the issues.
and the neighbors are great too. They have cameras and everything, and we went to that property to check on it, and
Mhm.
staging stuff was missing.
No way.
A couch was missing. A
Oh,
couple
man.
mirrors were missing. We went to the basement, and all the plumbing was cut out.
Oh no, the copper, right?
All the copper was cut out. And we couldn't believe it. In the other property in Cheever, all the wiring was cut out. All
Yeah.
the electrical wiring was cut
Yeah.
out. And I asked the police, they're like, yeah, they're going to sell it. I'm like, but how much street value does that have? It doesn't have much street
No,
value, but they'll
no.
just sell anything.
They're looking for any way to make some cash, so they can go buy some.
Yeah,
you know.
and you know what? I gotta say it's a lot less now than it used to be. It used to be a lot worse.
Mhm.
Now, with a lot of people moving in from the out of town and actually living in these blocks.
Yeah.
It's different. Back
Yeah.
then, it used to be mostly investors, right?
Yeah.
Buying, investing, and renting out
Yeah.
units. But now it's mostly people coming and living in these areas, right? So it's a lot less. But yeah, it's Hamilton is definitely gentrifying, and you know, I can't see I can't wait to see what happens next. So tell me, Arro, what are you working on now? Like I know you're an investor, you're working on some stuff. What are you working on right now?
So right now we're working on some like larger multifamily,
Awesome.
units, eight plexes and onward.
Oh wow,
Doing a conversion right now on Wellington.
Wellington Street.
Yep.
Okay,
So we're
is it
taking
north or south?
north.
North. Awesome.
Just
Awesome.
near Kiwi Condos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, right
Nice.
across the street from
Is
it. Actually,
that's a multiplex?
yeah,
So what? That's 8 unit.
8 units. So it was commercial before.
Okay.
And given the zoning, we were able to get it approved for 8 residential units.
Wow, congrats. That's huge, man.
Thank you. So doing the construction there now. We're gonna do CMHC financing when it's done.
That's huge. So tell me about the CMHC. Everybody's doing the CMHC.
Yeah.
So what is this CMHC? What is the perk with that?
So the perk, there's a couple of perks. I'll list them in order, I guess. The number one being it's you can get higher loan to value, right? So CMHC usually you can go up to 85, but with this program you can go up to 95.
Yeah, that was the main perk that I was hearing a lot of people talking about.
Yeah. But that being said, though, like you can't always just say, oh yeah, we're gonna go 95. You have to still remain within the debt service ratio, right? So if the debt service only allows you to go up to 80, no matter what the value is, you can't go up to 95 because the debt service won't let you.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Do they have a point system for that?
For sure, yeah. So in order to qualify for that program, you have to get points.
Okay.
And depending on the building, you can be strategic in how you achieve those points. But it has 3 pillars: affordability, if energy efficiency, and accessibility.
So is it based on the person that's applying, or is it based on the building and the rent?
Yeah, so usually commercial mortgages for multi-res, it's based on the income that the property is generating. So not necessarily on the individual that owns the building or applying for the mortgage. They will look at the individual, right?
Yeah.
Just to see what kind of experience they have and also their net worth. But it's not about how much income you have versus what kind of mortgage you're getting on the building.
So
it's
they
the
do
net
an appraisal, right?
They'll do an appraisal for the building itself, and that the way they determine the value is based on net income.
So in this situation, you're renovating, right? So it'd be based on like market rents that an appraiser would do.
Yeah, so we had a couple of appraisals done that they looked at comps near the area where other units are renting for.
Okay.
And based on that, they would use
so market rents.
Market rents, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's like 8-unit building. That's massive, man.
It's a good size, and it's a unique building too. It used to be a framing mill, like a wood mill.
Nice.
Back in the days, it's nice. It's got massive beams. Like one of the beams is a giant tree.
So you're telling me the next party's at your place?
We could do a party there now. It's vacant right now.
There's probably construction stuff everywhere.
There is.
Yeah.
We have cameras, so don't go breaking into that one.
Tell everybody, don't go breaking in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's huge. 8 units to get that approved with the city. How hard was that process?
Yeah, that's depending on who you have on your side working on the permits.
Yeah.
Hamilton's super slow. And also depending on who you get at the city that's reviewing your file, right?
That's true too. Yeah.
I've had some good
examiners.
Yeah, I have some good one. I had some good ones in the past where they're like, yeah, this looks good, sign off. But there are some ones that are like very like
I know
they're like going through every single thing.
I know,
and I almost feel like they've never been on site ever.
And you know what? You're right. Some of them are new.
Yeah.
Some of them are new, and I've experienced it with duplexes.
Yeah.
Where they don't know as much. And you're kind of guiding them along.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's experienced ones and there's new ones. But the city's had a lot of new hires. So I think that, but like getting an eightplex approved is massive because I just do some duplexes and I see how long it takes.
Yeah.
So an eightplex must have been like through the ringer. Everything got to be.
Yeah,
like,
you gotta go get site plan exemption. right?
Okay.
If you have to go through site plan, that's going to take much longer time.
Is that like the phase 1 and phase 2 kind of thing?
No, that's environmental.
Environmental. You did you have to do an
I
environmental?
did. I did
Okay.
a phase 1 and a phase 2.
Okay.
Pretty expensive.
Oh, really expensive.
Yeah.
How much does that come out to? If you don't
So
mind me
phase 1 was, I think, $5,700,
asking? Wow.
and phase 2 was $17,000.
$17,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And mind you, this is prior to us buying the property firm. So this is conditional. This is during the
this
conditional.
is the conditional phase.
Correct.
Wow.
So potentially
So-
you're spending all this capital
and not even getting,
getting
the property.
Yeah.
That's kind of risky though, eh? Like
It
you're
is.
spending like over $20,000 here, $23,000
Yeah.
on the
Well,
hopes
the total due diligence was, because you have to get an appraisal. An appraisal for multifamily, it's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
So altogether, it was easily just around 30 grand.
Wow.
Yeah. And that money you wouldn't get back.
It's a risk you take,
Yeah.
but multifamily, the fact that you've got it this far and you got it approved, that's massive. Like
Yeah.
I know, because I dealt with the city with duplexes and triplexes, and just on the small stuff, the duplexes and the triplexes, it takes a while.
Yeah.
So on an eightplex, they're probably make it like, how long did that process take? That probably took like
Almost
6,
a year.
7.
Almost
See,
a year.
See, I was thinking 8 months, but
Yeah.
a year. So
A year.
makes
So
sense.
there's, again, I really emphasize you got to have the right people on your team.
Yeah.
That's number one.
100%.
Right. The second thing is, depending on who you get on the city, that could really throw things off, because maybe they're not as experienced. Maybe they're too, picky with what they want to see.
Yeah.
We had situations like they wanted us to get an easement because the lot size, right? The property line is right, like the property itself is right on the property line, right?
Yeah.
So we need to put some vents for your ducting.
Mhm.
And they said, well, now it's going to be on city property, so you have to go get an easement or an encroachment agreement.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know, but those, now you're dealing with lawyers to prepare. That takes forever,
Oh
right?
my God. I could just imagine.
So we said, no, we don't need that,
Did you
because
get a
there's
variance for that? Or?
no. So we went to the encroachment department.
Okay.
They said, no, you don't need it.
Oh,
So I said, okay.
perfect.
Then they said, oh no, you need an easement. So now we went to the easement department.
Oh my God.
They said, no, you don't need an easement.
So they're ping ponging you around.
Correct. So we wasted like 3 months doing that
Oh my
just to
God.
find out that we don't need it. So it's like now, when it comes to accountability, there's no accountability, right? I can't go to the city and be like, hey, this
No.
person caused a 3-month delay.
No.
You should fire that person, right?
It's you're absolutely correct. I've been through that myself, where you're in the back burner and you've corrected something and you sent it back, and you waited the 2-week period and you're still not getting an answer.
Well, they don't even look at it now.
You got to keep
Yeah.
calling and calling and calling. But you know what? That's a cause for a celebration. Big party at Arro's place. Guys, big party at Arro's place. You got the permit.
Yeah.
So, you know what? That's awesome. That you're doing that.
Thanks.
Like, what are the future plans? What are you thinking in terms of future investments that you want to do? Are you still thinking Hamilton with
Yeah.
the interest rates the way they are? Are you thinking, you're looking at other cities like Niagara, St. Catharines? What are you thinking?
I actually get that question a lot from a lot of my clients. But for the most part, I'm still looking in Hamilton, because I think, like I said before, there's tons of inventory here that needs to be turned over.
100%.
And, I was doing a lot with, duplex, triplex, and fourplex.
Yeah.
But I've moved towards like the bigger stuff now.
Yeah, the bigger stuff, yeah.
That's where I find there's more opportunities.
Well, there's more value in this kind of a market right now with the rates the way they are. It only makes sense to do the bigger ones, because
Correct.
the smaller ones you're gonna be negative
You're
cash
not going to
flow.
cash flow.
So
Yeah.
it's not like, I remember there used to be a time when we were talking about this where you could burn all your money out and make profit and cash flow.
Yeah.
Those were called the good old days, I guess.
Those are the good. I mean, there are some home run deals here and
Yeah.
there where you're
Yeah.
pulling out all of your capital.
Yeah.
In some cases on top.
Yeah.
And still cash flowing, but not right now.
No,
The interest rates are way too high.
You know what? Anybody that's an investor knows you make money on the buy.
Right.
You make money on your purchase. So if you bought a good property at a good price, you make the money there, right?
For sure.
Like
100%.
you could lose money doing renovations and all that stuff, but if you made a good purchase at the right time at the right price,
Yeah.
then you'll always be okay.
Yeah.
But that's awesome, man. Let's thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
And I look forward to doing some stuff with you. We're gonna do a lot of stuff on the streets. We're asking people questions and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I look forward to working with you in the future.
Same here, man.
All right,
Looking
brother.
forward
Thank you
to
so
it.
much, man.
No worries.
Thanks.